Hi there. I wanted to finish going over the homework problems from last night and the ones from AP Classroom from the night before, as I promised I would be doing in a screencast. So in number 9, um, and, um, and I think we just started this problem at the end of class. It says a method called transfer was added to the bank account class. And the bank account class is the superclass of checking account and savings account. It has one parameter where it takes another bank account object and an amount and then calls the withdraw amount. So it would be calling the withdraw method of the superclass and then calling a bank account and then calling the deposit account, the deposit method of the superclass. So then it says it has these three declarations, which one of them will transfer money from one account to another without error. So B is a bank account. Time savings is a savings account. So you are allowed to supply a time savings object when a bank account, the superclass parameter exists, because a time savings account is a bank account, right? So you're allowed, just like when you sort of like in the same way that you can supply an int in place of a double. It's the same kind of concept. You're supplying an instance of the subclass for a superclass parameter, which is legitimate. You can do that. Now, you can't do it the other way around, but that is legitimate. So that's why the first one will work. The second one is the same thing, okay, except that you're supplying a checking account object in when a bank account parameter exists. All right, so that is legitimate, and so is the third one, where you're actually supplying a bank account object where a bank account for a bank account parameter. So that's why it is all three, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so then number 10 says consider these class declarations person, and then you have a teacher extending person. Which statement is true? Teacher inherits the constructors of person. No. Constructors are not inherited, period. 2, teacher can add new methods and private instance variables. Yes, that is correct. 3, teacher can override existing private methods. No, that is wrong. A teacher can only override public methods, not private methods. Okay, so that means that only 2 is correct, so the answer would be B. Okay, number 11, which statement about subclass methods is false? Okay, writing 2 subclass methods with the same name but different parameters is called method overriding. No, that's called method overloading. That's what A is. That would mean that I believe A is false. Different parameters, that's not overriding. Overriding is when you have a superclass and a subclass that both have the same method. Okay, so then in this problem, you were supposed to create a snowy owl class that was a subclass of owl. So the first thing you would want to do is say public class snowy owl extends owl. And then for some of the descriptive features of snowy owl, it says it's an owl whose name is always snowy owl. Well, if you look at owl, owl has an instance variable called name, all right, and it has a constructor that takes a name and assigns a name to the private instance variable of the superclass owl. So that means the constructor of snowy owl, to initialize name to always be snowy owl, you would call the superconstructor of owl as the first line of code in the constructor of snowy owl. So that takes care of it's an owl whose name is always Snowy Owl. And then it says if the owl is a male, its color is speckled. It also had said the snowy owl should have a private instance variable of type Boolean that stores if the owl is male and false otherwise. Um, so that would mean you need a Boolean variable, which here we have is male. And then the constructor basically assigns, has one parameter for is a male. And it assigns the value to is male. And then it says it should also have a constructor and a get color method that returns a string with the snowy owl's color. Well, the get color checks to see if is male is true and then returns white, otherwise it returns speckled. And then finally, get food. So get food is overridden, is an overridden method of the superclass. It generates a random number between 0 and 2. So this one is going to generate a random int either 0, 1, or 2, and returns a specific one of the three values based on the random int value. Okay, so that's the end of last night's homework. Now let's look at the homework from the previous night, which was temporarily disabled for all of you because of problems with AP. Okay, so from the homework from the other night, the first question gives you a book class and a textbook class, which extends book. So textbook is a subclass of book. So if you look at it, textbook has one constructor. And remember, constructors are not inherited. However, this constructor does not call, you see no reference to super, meaning it will not, there's no explicit reference. And that means by default, implicitly, the no-args constructor of the superclass book is going to be called, which is going to initialize book title to be nothing at all. So that's why the answer is C. There's an implicit call to the zero parameter book constructor. The instance variable book title is initialized to empty quotation marks. Then the instance variable subject is initialized with the value of the parameter of the subject. So that is right. So in the subclass constructor, the only constructor the subclass has, there's no explicit reference to super. There's no call to super, which must be the first line of a subclass constructor if there is going to be a reference to super. So that means the no-args constructor of the superclass is going to be called implicitly or behind the scenes by default. Okay, the next question is, okay, so this next question actually has an error in it now that I look at it carefully. So the answer that they have is D. The bird variable B is instantiated as a hawk object. So basically, you're creating a hawk, which is a subclass object, and assigning it to a superclass variable bird. So the call super beak invokes the bird constructor initialize the instance variable beak strength. Okay, so this would be correct, except they have an error up here in the way they have the constructor written. So they have public void bird int input. I believe that's meant to be the constructor of bird. However, constructors do not have a data type or a void and they have a no return type. So that is actually an error. It should have just said public bird int input. If it had, D would make sense, where the constructor for the superclass bird is called and that takes an int value as input, and then that would assign whatever that is to beak strength. So I hope you guys weren't confused by that. I guess I'm not the only one who makes mistakes in my questions. Okay, so now let's look at number 4. Okay, so number 4, this was actually I think this was a free response question from a previous year. So let me just take a look and see if I can do a pretty good explanation of it. Okay, so here we have the first solution to writing the class meal. So as a string variable for entree and a double variable for cost, it has a one constructor which is pretty much very traditional, where it has two parameters, one for the one instance variable, the other for the other instance variable, and assigns value to those. And then it has a toString method, public string toString, that prints out what the value of the meal is. Okay, then let's see. The second portion of it says writes a complete class deluxe meal. Okay, so deluxe meal, oh, interesting. There's another error in this problem, in that they gave you the class meal again in the solution. Okay, so let me actually see if I can write deluxe meal myself on the fly, right? Okay, so here goes me doing deluxe meal. So you would say public deluxe meal, and then you would say extends meal. Okay, that would be the first thing. And then you'd have to add those two new instance variables, one for the side dish, and let's see, and one for the drink. Okay, and if you look at the constructor has burrito, chips, lemonade, and drink, and that contains the entree is the burrito, the chips is the side dish, the lemonade is the drink. So so I'm going to say string drink, and I'm going to say string side dish. Okay, and then the constructor has to be public deluxe meal. Now it's going to call the construct of meal with and we need to have the four parameters. One is going to be, let's see, the entree. So and the way they have it written here, the entree needs to be the first one. So I would do string entree. Then now we have, let's see, the side dish, string SD. Then we have the drink, string, and let me go so you can see this, string DR. And then finally we have the price. So I would say double PR. Okay, and now I'm going to call the superclass constructor using the ENT, the entree, and the PR, the price. So I'm going to say super, and then I would say ENT PR. And then finally, I would say drink equals DR and price side dish equals SD. Okay, and I believe that would be it. It also has a toString method. So the toString method of deluxe meal, let's see, the string deluxe burrito meal 1049 is returned. Let's see if that's any different than no, it is not. It's the same thing. It doesn't. So the string deluxe burrito meal 1040. Oh yeah, it tacks on deluxe in front of it. So I would say public string toString, and then it would be return, and then deluxe. And then plus, and then it would be super.toString. Okay, so it's going to call the toString method of the superclass, which prints out the meal and its price, and then it tacks on deluxe into the front. Okay, so that would be the solution, what you would write for deluxe meal. Okay,